What is up, everybody? How are you guys doing? Thanks for checking out this video. Support for the channel is awesome. I want to give a scenario. A lot of people don't think that the country can be attacked, America can't fall. I'm here to show you a scenario story on how the United States can fall in 3 hours. Don't think it's possible? Listen to this. So I want to start a little bit with the preface. Russia does a lot of supply runs down to Cuba. They're finishing one up and starting to head home. Russia and North Korea and China are doing a military drill. Not the biggest in the country, but a very large size military drill in international waters close to the Alaskan border on the south side of Alaska. Just another day, no big deal, nothing to see here, just like we see every single day. The president is informed at this time that something is brewing. They don't know what it is. They want to go ahead and fly him over to Nebraska to get him set just in case there's a bigger event that happens, or any event that happens, being that nothing is known at this point, that they can get him on his command and control plane. They can get him into a bunker system. They can do what they need to do to be able to keep the country rolling if there's an attack. Nebraska is one of the places for command and control. So the vice president stays at the White House with most of the staff and Secretary of State, and really most of the government doesn't even know anything is going on. So let's start with the first scenario here. So there's a woman working the first half of her emergency room nurse shift. Decides to go ahead and go to lunch with her friends. Lunch for her is going to be dinner for the other people, but they decided to go to a quick taqueria and meet up. So she sends them a text, say, hey, I'm done with my shift for now. I'm going to be heading out. I'll let you know whenever I head out. Yep, thumbnails, happy faces. Communication's doing great. Passes her station, hits the elevator, down the elevator, out the front door, goes to her car. Goes to text her friends to say, hey, I'm on my way. Realizes there's no signal. They always get a signal there, but for some reason there's no signal. No big deal, don't really think anything about it. Plugs her phone in, throws it on the seat, throws her bag on top of her phone, proceeds to go meet her friends for her lunch. So about halfway there, she hears a little bit of a weird squeaking, sizzling kind of noise. Not sure what it is, and underneath her bag was a pretty loud popping sound. Funny smell fills the inside of her car. She rolls the window down, pulls over, moves stuff around to find out where it is, picks up her phone. Her phone is completely destroyed. She flips it over. The back of it's all swollen, and it seems like the battery exploded. It did damage to her seat, didn't really damage much else, but it did happen. Thinking it was probably an isolated incident, and it was a malfunction with her phone, she proceeds to the restaurant to meet her friends. A little upset that her phone is KIA. So come to find out, this was a nationwide Chinese attack from Salt Typhoon. They've been implemented into our phone systems. They are right now in real life. And they went ahead and enacted civilian communication disruption. This ends up taking out almost every single phone, every single cell service from AT&T to Verizon. Smaller companies, US Cellular, Boost Mobile, are all taken out. The cell phone services have been hit by a denial of service attack, and they're completely, it's done. It's done. Now, only a couple people perished in this moment. Quite a few people got injuries on their hands, but this was across the complete country, including Alaska. Hawaii seemed to be spared. At the same time, China makes the call for Al-Qaeda to act. Al-Qaeda is under the Chinese control. Most of the world on the east side against the west is under Xi Jinping's control. He makes the final call. He calls to the head of Al-Qaeda. to enact their plan. 28 Al-Qaeda suicide bombers, trained as pilots, go to their rental planes. Some of them have landed on private property, some of them at schools, some of them at private airports. They load in tons of explosives into the planes. They fire up the engines, head for the runways. So a person driving in traffic. Let's take the 405 in California. Rush hour's starting to pick up quite a bit. It's always rush hour in California, but the speeds of the freeway are starting to slow down. An older Tahoe, say mid-90s, starts driving a little bit erratically. People start to back off a little bit. Even though traffic's only going about 40 miles an hour, people start to back up. Tahoe hits its brakes, swerves to the right, to the left, back to the right again, blocking 3 out of 4 of the lanes of flow of traffic. So he gets out of the car, walks to the back passenger door, and leans in. This is facing away from the traffic to where not many people can see what's going on. It doesn't even help that there's tinted windows on the vehicle as well. So he leans out of the truck as traffic starts to back up. 20, 30, 35 cars at this point, just a matter of a couple seconds. People scramble to get around the so-called stalled vehicle and bottlenecks most of the traffic into a 2-lane pass on the left side, fast lane, and the lane next to the fast lane. As people pass the vehicle, he's leaning in. They give him the old California one-finger salute. He leans back out of the car, now wearing an armored ballistic plate carrier with 12 magazines strapped to it, a machete in his back, and an AK-47. So the first target is the traffic passing him. As somebody's yelling at him and another person is kind of looking, trying to figure out what's going on, he opens fire on the 2 vehicles, stopping them dead in their tracks. One rolls forward a little bit until it goes into the wall. Traffic completely stops. Turns around to the vehicle behind them, opens fire, and opens fire on everybody in traffic, killing at least 25 people and injuring about 25 people as well. Nobody knows what's going on outside of their individual situation. After the shooter runs out of ammunition, pulls out his machete and begins his attack on anybody that had their window down, which seemed to be a lot of people that day, considering maybe it was nice weather or people were just hanging out to try to find out what was going on. He ends up losing his life after a couple people, bigger guys, military vets, jump out, tackle him to the ground with fight, struggling, ends up throwing him into the concrete barrier that divides the 2 ways of traffic, hitting his head and smashing his head into the corner of the concrete, killing the terrorist. Obviously, the terrorists end up dying in different ways around the country, but this happens across every single major city, from Dallas, Houston, Sacramento, San Diego, LA, Seattle, Baltimore, Boston, Charlotte, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, St. Louis, on and on and on. East Coast time is more on the end of the rush hour. Central time is prime rush hour, and the Pacific time is just before rush hour started. This ends up killing about 25 people per incident and injuring about 25 to 30 people per incident. Very few people live in this attack. This attack was very effective. Very effective. In this time frame, 911 is completely overwhelmed. All police officers are scrambled. Emergency personnel are scrambled. Everybody is trying to figure out what is going on. FBI agents in local offices are scrambled out to the freeway incidences, and everybody is put into action over this mass shooting. Now, if you see any mass shooting that has happened in this country, a lot of people come to call. This is no different. The president is moved into a bunker. the vice president has moved underneath the White House and advised all of the staff members to get their stuff together and get to a safe place. Some are going to be down in the bunkers. Some go to safe rooms. A message is sent throughout congressmen in the government that there may be something going on. The president is informed about the situation that happened on the freeways, and he is beginning to put together a speech to go on the air to tell and address the public, citizens of the United States, of the tragedy that has happened on the freeways. That mass shooters, possibly known to be ISIS members, have killed thousands of people, and this terrorist attack will not go unanswered. But he begins to prepare the speech. China calls to action on the Chinese American people living here in the country. Calls to the people that are on the farmlands next to the military bases. Each farm has a crop duster there in a barn. China, for the last 15 years, has been working on chemical agents for this day. They've shipped it in concentrated amounts. They've mixed it with water to dilute it. And they have filled up the crop dusters, averaging 650 gallons of chemical nerve agent into the belly of the crop dusters. They roll them out onto the tarmac, the makeshift runways, the runways that are on the farms, in any way that they're able to get them into the air. At this point, the Cessnas that the Al-Qaeda have rented, some that own them, have been into flight. They all deviate from their path and start taking aim on their targets. At this point, the news channels begin to broadcast breaking news. Possible cell phone attack. Cell phone batteries malfunction across the United States, injuring many people. They say that the full story is not known yet, but most people are not watching. Most families with young kids have children's programming streaming from their favorite service. Most do not watch network news, so this goes quite unseen. Normally, news will travel pretty quick on X, Facebook, different social media platforms, but the phones aren't working. The cell networks aren't working. The only way to communicate with people is through network TV, and we don't really watch network TV anymore. We're kind of stuck in the world of streaming services, which is going to really be good in this case, since most of this information goes unnoticed. At this time, the Air Force has been notified that planes are deviating off their path. The Air Force is scrambled. A little bit of chaos begins to break out in the U.S. government, not knowing what's going on. The president calls for martial law to go into effect. They need to get control of this situation. Between the injuries and the cell phones and the mass shooters, they fear something bigger is happening. Also at this time, the first plane hits Atlanta Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. Terminal B. Directly targeting the people waiting for a flight. Delta Airlines, still empty at the time, is waiting to board. The Cessna flies directly in between the two, going through the glass windows and igniting the explosives on the plane. Instantly killing everybody in the vicinity for 2 gates. All the passers-by, workers down on the ground, the pilots, the staff on the planes, people passing the gates in the same vicinity in the terminal. One of the Delta Airlines planes ended up catching fire and exploding due to us doing pre-fueling before its flight and before the boarding. Nobody was on board. but the plane still exploded. Other attacks around the country, out of the 28 planes that went up with Al-Qaeda members flying them, multiple targets in Washington, D.C., including one aimed directly at the Oval Office in the White House, the U.S. Capitol, the Statue of Liberty, San Francisco Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, civilian areas, sporting events, large gatherings of people, large Walmart supercenters, toll gates, and lots of other places. 3,000 people die in this event and countless people injured. The hospitals instantly become completely overwhelmed. Emergency services are already stretched thin. Nobody really attends to the people at the airport. Nobody really attends to the people that are in these plane bombings that have happened. The country begins to stop and realize. Also at this time, the crop dusters approach the military bases. Flying in at about 100 yards, they go basically unnoticed. Being that the people have been flying the crop dusters pretty regularly, this doesn't strike anybody as a weird situation. Until the crop dusters pretty much go straight, fly directly over the base. As soon as they go onto the base, they open the valves and release the chemical nerve agents. This hits people at the gate. They fly over the cafeterias, the mess halls, the living quarters, training facilities, anywhere that they see people, and they cover as much area as they can. This goes over 100 military bases across the country. A lot of people on the military bases just don't see things. They see something out of the ordinary. They just have a tendency to look up and stare at it. They don't do much. A couple of the planes were shot at. Eventually, all of them were taken down. All of the pilots perished. The president informs everybody about what's going on. He gives a speech breaking all broadcasting networks, hitting the presidential alert system, and everything that they have the means to do. Informing everybody about the mass shootings on the freeway, possibly being terrorist, the cell phone attack, possibly being terrorist, and that planes have been attacking over the last few minutes that are known to be terrorist. Nobody takes credit for it. From ISIS, from Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas. Silence. Nobody knows who it is. But they assume, and they're telling the public, that it is a terrorist attack in this country. This is able to reach more people this time, since news is getting around that something is going on. People turn off their Netflix, people turn off their Disney TV, and flip on regular news to find this information, to find the president talking. Some places play it on repeat. Other places go to talking head commentaries criticizing how things could have been better, that it might not be true, and lots of opinions begin to brew. Family is sitting in their house, watching the news in awe. They can't believe what they're seeing. They can't believe what they're hearing. People stop everywhere, walking on the streets. Any way that there is a chance to see a television, they're stopping to watch the news, stopping to watch the horror. A lot of people are doubtful against it. A lot of people are not really believing necessarily that this is actually happening, that it could be some sort of Russian propaganda. It could be hackers that are doing it and playing fake thing, because after all, there is no video. Nobody has shot a video of these attacks happening. There is no visual content at all. It is just politics and news anchors saying words. So as a lot of people are scared, there are some people that aren't really believing it and are a little skeptical on it, because no video is quite different in today's times. A truck with 3 cars busts the gate of a northwest Chicago suburban community. Middle upper class neighborhood, randomly picked. They pull onto the first street the whole community existing of 3 streets, and the truck stops. All vehicles stop. Everybody exits the vehicle wearing all black, covered faces, and heavily armed. Total of 15 people get out of the vehicles. They walk over to 6 different houses and kick the doors in, killing every single person that's inside. Again, women, children, men, and pets. Some of the people take the children out to the middle of the street and behead them, knowing that some of the neighbors around are watching. Some people are standing in the street in absolute shock and horror. Once it gets known in the neighborhood, people begin to lock the doors. Some people are able to fight back. One man comes out with a compact 9mm, emptying the clip into the direction of the people. No one gets hit, and that person gets taken down. The little bit of self-defense that Illinois has greatly restricts any sort of protection that they might be able to give for their families. Most of the people are taken out in this neighborhood. Eventually, civilians take the terrorist out. It takes a long time. They go through a full street and a half of another street. They kill countless amounts of people and rain terror on the neighborhood. They call upon everybody that has ties to any terrorist group in the world to enact, to do these things. Kill as many people as you can. As people are watching the news, families trying to figure out how to keep their family safe, people that aren't affected by any of this stuff, people out in Kansas that haven't been hit by the freeway attacks, they haven't even checked their phone, they haven't been in the suburbia America to get these other attacks, watching in horror, in awe at what's going on. The TV goes blank. The power goes down. The lights go out and it goes dark. China shuts down the power grid. The warnings have been out there for decades that they've infiltrated the software. They have sabotaged a lot of the hardware, and that we needed to do something about it. It goes ignored, unfixed, and they flip the switch. The only power stations that are working are a couple small scale wind farms and small scale solar farms. Not supplying much power to any of the civilians, mostly to power government facilities and places of importance, with maybe power plants and other things. People realize a lot of people go outside. It's starting to get dark outside. Without any noise, any radios, TVs, anything, you can hear screams better. You can hear the car accidents just a little bit better. Everything begins to set in that we are under attack. All we can do is what the president instructed us to do, which is to go in, lock your doors, and wait for further instructions. But now that we can't do that, everybody in this country is going to have to figure it out on their own. People trying to get around different areas, traffic lights are out, chaos begins to break out. And for the first time, you can't see it, but you can hear it. The people that are out there begin a mad panic rush to get home to their families and their loved ones. Most people realize that the freeways are basically down. The congestion on the freeways are unpassable and gridlocked, even though some people still try to do it and they get stuck. The major highways, the secondary transportation routes for the freeway, become gridlocked instantly. People are very frustrated, people are very scared, people are angry, people are yelling, road rage is very high. Some people take the law into their own hands, start driving on sidewalks, start driving on railroad tracks, private land, anything to get around the masses that are trying to move all at once in these cities to be able to get home to their families. People stuck in the gridlock. People running out of gas on the highways begin to abandon their vehicle and walk. They know they're going to get there quicker walking, which escalates the problem of congested streets, congested freeways. Most people on the freeways begin to abandon their vehicles. At the same time, during this time window, some smaller groups in major cities take to the subways. The major train stations, mostly in New York City, to try to take out and kill as many people as they can exiting these trains. News is kind of broken out within the subways of people that are boarding it, talking about things that are going on. But it still seems surreal that anything could actually happen to them. As they exit the trains at the train stations, they're open fire on. Passing trains, they open fire on them. It's just an all-out hellscape of a bloodbath of people, if you even want to call them that, trying to take out as many American citizens as they possibly can. The military drills that Russia and China were doing had a couple boats a little bit closer than we wanted to get. They have moved in over the last couple hours and gotten within range for medium range missiles. China and Russia combined launched 2,000 missiles on the west coast, directly aimed towards military bases. Navy bases, Army bases, Marines, Air Force, and everybody. As we're able to shoot down just about every single missile with only a couple of them hitting their targets, doing minimal damage with minimal casualties, they also launched a fleet of drones of 3,000 coming towards the west coast. They also do this on the east coast. China had submarines on the east coast, pairing up with Russia and even some Iranian ships. As the drones are coming in, they launch another missile attack behind that is going to pass up the drones and attack just before the drones get there. This time, most of the missiles hit their target, as well as being followed up by many drones that are going in to attack infrastructure, water plants, gas lines, gas refineries and storage facilities, as well as civilian targets, freeways, neighborhoods, hospitals, and things like that. The devastation is off of the chart. The casualties are off of the chart. America is officially at war. Our military is in a full defensive stance, trying to fend off whoever it's attacking, even if we know at this point China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and possibly other countries are involved with it. They've tracked missiles coming out of Cuba, going in to attack the many big cities in Florida. Miami, Tampa, St. Pete, Orlando, Jacksonville, Panama City, all the way around into Mobile, Alabama, and up to Atlanta, Georgia. They're able to get these ranges with missiles that were supplied from Russia that have been stored underground for many, many years. A full missile attack and drone attack in retaliation to what happened comes from the United States. We send a full attack with our Air Force out to the ships and do mass destruction. Our Pacific Fleet turns and head towards the conflict, and our Atlantic Fleet is still stuck over in the Red Sea against Iran. In the defense of our country, we focus on attacking the direct threat that is here at our front door. All across our coastline, in front of our ports, our shipping ports, Chinese shipping containers change direction, face towards the United States, perpendicular to every other ship. 10 containers on the top of the shipment, on the top of the freight, open up Missile batteries holding 20 short-range missiles sitting just outside of the port begin to raise on each ship. There's 2 ships sitting at each port and many, many ports. They launch an attack on the shipping ports themselves. Los Angeles, Baltimore, all across the country. Completely destroying the shipping ports. From the cranes, the buildings, the infrastructure, the products that are sitting on the docks. The trucks, the logistics, everything gets destroyed. There's no defense. There's nothing to do to stop the attack. Every single missile hits. Every single missile hits in destruction. With 20 per container, 10 containers is 200 missiles. 2 freighter ships brings it to 400 missiles that hit each port across the United States. It is completely devastating on all levels. Nothing is coming in other country and nothing is going out of the country. We're completely shut down. Russia and China also have sleeper cells here in the country. They have been buying drones, simple drones, Amazon, Walmart, hobby shops, DJI, cheap drones. They've been outfitted with grenade-sized explosives, homemade, made with fertilizers, made with any sort of things that they can do. And they set out on the attack. This is going into neighborhoods, flying POV, and taking out individuals. Anything that's a group of 5 people standing around, talking, trying to figure out what's going on in this country. A full-blown assault attack comes from within the United States, through China, through Russia, Iran, all these people that have been here. They have been all prepared with these drones and explosives. They are flying them into people's houses. They are flying them into people's cars. It is devastating as well, just on a smaller scale. Fires begin to break out. The explosions are catching things on fire. People go from the stage of being in a stunned state to being in a state of fear. This isn't good. Most people do erratic things. People are trying to get home to their families, and a lot of people are still hungry over the last couple hours. Emotions are extremely high. People are carjacking in order to be able to get home, and chaos is starting to break out. America is falling. Now, this is an example I explained in about a half hour or 40 minutes of what 3 hours of an attack can look like. These are all things that we know in this country. We know what China is planning to do. We understand the capabilities of Russia. We understand about the sleeper cells. These are all very real possibilities to where if they wanted to do a shock and awe attack on the U.S., if Xi Jinping and China wanted to bring down the United States of America to its knees to beg for forgiveness, this is a definite possibility on what can happen. But it has to happen fast, and it has to happen very effectively. And I think given this scenario right here, you can see this is a possibility. And I'm just a peon. Imagine what smart people in the CCP, the PLA, Russia, Iran, all over the world, getting together, holding conferences and meetings, putting together plans to do something of the sort. Now, the scenario that I gave you guys today might not work out exactly that way, even if they tried. You're going to have military intervention. You're going to have more civilians that might step up. Things might not go as planned, but this is just something that I came across in the back of my head. Now, when you actually get militaries and governments involved, it can be very effective. And this is a possibility. This is what China says that they want to do. They've outright already said it. A shock and awe attack with proxies using terrorists, using drugs, using chemical and biological, and they can bring the United States to their knees without firing one bullet. It's a possibility.